Well, Jeremy Hunt, the new Chancellor, says that there will be difficult decisions ahead on government spending, as we've just been discussing. It could, of course, mean less money for frontline services, potentially a squeeze on pay, and that could lead to yet more action by the unions. Well, let's go now to our next guest, shall we? I'm very pleased to say that we're joined by the General Secretary of Unite, who is Sharon Graham, and joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us. We obviously need to start talking about some of the events that have unfolded over the last week. We've got a new Chancellor. What are you hoping to see from him?
Well, look, I think that we are witnessing a horror story, to be honest. It's like watching a film behind your hands, and every time you look, there's something worse happening. And I think that we've got a real problem on our hands. Jeremy Hunt is not the answer to what is happening here. Jeremy Hunt, if you heard him yesterday, was talking about a second round of austerity. And I think what people will not put up with, after the 2008 financial crash, this country went through 10 years of austerity, 10 years of pain, 10 years of struggle, workers and their families, and they did that because of the financial crash. We have another incident that is not the fault of workers, it's not the fault of communities, yet they will be asked to pay the price. So I think we've got a real situation on our hands, and we really have to discuss now as a country, who is this economy for? Who is the economy for? And I think that there needs to be a change in government.
Do we also not need to discuss what on earth can anyone, whoever the government is, do to try and regain the trust of the markets and to look at what many people are predicting, I think in the papers today, £72 billion black hole in the public finances? Jeremy Hunt talking about looking at spending, yes, but also looking at tax rises. Isn't that just being realistic?
No, because it's choices. And that's what I think really people are beginning to understand now. This is all about choices. It's not about one woman who's put her foot on the accelerator, because I think what we've just seen is a glimpse of our future. Nobody has said they think her direction of travel is wrong. What they've said is the way that she's done it is wrong. And that looks to be where they want to take us. But these are choices that you make. How can you have a situation where you make a choice to make sure that bankers do not have caps on their bonus? That's a choice that we've made, but nurses can't get a pay rise. So we need an entire look at the economy as a whole. We need to say, who is this economy for? Who is it working for? Trickle-down does not work. We can see that it doesn't work. Who is it working for? And we do now need a change of government.
You said that we need a change of government. Liz Truss has sacked a Chancellor. She's U-turned on most of the flagship policies in her budget. She's got a new Chancellor in place with a very different economic strategy from the last one. Do you think she can stay in her job?
Well, I think she will, because she'll try to cling on. She either will or they'll try and replace her. Turkeys aren't going to vote for Christmas. So whilst I think that there should be a change in government, I have to say I don't think that there will be a change in government, and probably they'll be clinging on right to the very end. And that is why Labour have a real opportunity now, and they need to take that opportunity. There's clear blue water opened up on the political horizon, there's no doubt about that, but this is not a moment to play it safe. This is not a moment to say, OK, well, look, they're doing so badly, we just have to sit on the sidelines here. This is the moment to take this by the scruff of the neck, to say this is what we need to do, to come out with solutions to these problems, and to really lay out what Labour's stall is. Get some metal, lay out your stall, and say what people should vote for, not just what they should vote against.
Because I guess if you look at Labour now, the policies aren't that different from the Conservatives. They're actually, if you agree with the papers, they're actually saying that tax cuts should go further than the Conservatives by the 1p cut to tax being brought in before the Liz Truss plan. They agree with cancelling the rise in national insurance. What is the actual difference between Labour and the Conservatives?
Well, there is a difference because, of course, obviously what Labour will do is not attack workers in the same way. They'll do different things. But I don't think it is acceptable just to sit on the sidelines and have just a little bit of difference. You can't get in just because you're a little bit better than the other lot.
So
that isn't the way.
What specifically would you like to see Labour do now, then?
Well, I'd like Labour to really come out fighting, really, to say, look, we are on the side of workers and communities, and what does that mean? So, for example, asking the country to take a national pay cut. There is already a party for the business lobby. It's called the Tory party. They are the business lobby party. And what we now need is to see the party for workers and communities, and they come out very strongly and say, look, we are the party for workers and communities, and this is what we would do. So, for example, a very simple thing is to give the public sector workers their pay rise. That's a very simple thing. I mean, the thing about the economy, Sophie, is there are choices. So the banker's choice is a choice to give bankers their bonuses back that are unfettered, and then to say to nurses, you need to pay a pay cut. There are choices that are made in the economy. We want Labour to come out and make those choices more starkly so people can see them and have something to vote for as well as something to vote against, because that's really important.
Do you think Keir Starmer, his character, he's quite safety first, I guess? Do you think he's been a bit too timid?
Well, I want to talk about personalities, because obviously let's hope we move a bit away from personality politics. It's the policies that are the
So the policy is too timid?
The policy is too timid, and we need, what people need now is straight talking. They don't want people dancing around their handbags. They want straight talking. This is the situation we are in. I think everyone has seen the direction of travel of where the Conservative Party are taking us, because whilst, as I said, they are moving in that direction, they're saying too fast, they're not saying the direction's wrong. They're saying the direction's correct. Where that direction takes us, Jeremy Hunt yesterday was filled with dread when I heard him yesterday say, that we have to tighten our belts, to say that people have to be prepared for tough decisions to be made. That is code for workers and communities will suffer. That is what that's code for. Remember, Jeremy Hunt was the Health Secretary who effectively has a long history in this regard, and so that's what that's code for.
And you've had run-ins, your union's had run-ins with Jeremy Hunt in the past during the junior doctors' strike.
Yes.
Unite accused him then of contemptuous behaviour.
Well, look, what I think is Jeremy Hunt, actually, when he was the Health Secretary, one of the core things that he did was that he wanted the NHS to be part of the American trade deal. He wanted the NHS to be in the American trade deal. Now, I don't know what his plans are for this country as Chancellor, but anything towards privatising the NHS or anything that is going to make poor people poorer, that really is a difficulty.
I mean, we've had no indication that this government is going to look into things like that. But when it comes to, obviously, it's the thing that you're talking about an awful lot, is workers' pay. Where do you think he will be on public sector pay?
Well, I think he's already come out. I think one thing that will unite the Conservative Party very quickly is anti-trade union legislation. I think they are saying, he said again yesterday, they're going to bring this forward in terms of some of the anti-trade union legislation. Look, unions are a force for good. We're not there with some big red button in General Secretary's offices that we press and say, everybody go out on strike. That's not how it works. How strikes work is there are people in workplaces who have issues. They are trying to get them solved. Their employer says no. And then you see that their employer is earning millions, if not billions of pounds in profit. Not all employers, but some employers. Billions, if not, and billions of pounds in profit. And they're saying to those workers, take a pay cut. And so this government, I think, aids and abets that. I think Jeremy Hunt will do exactly the same. And people be warned. We will be watching them carefully. Those comments he made yesterday is about austerity. They'll call it a different word, but what they mean is the pain, yet again, will be taken by ordinary working people and our communities.
Now, you were saying there that strikes don't work by unions pressing a big red button and getting everyone to go out on strike, which, of course, I acknowledge. I'm interested, though, in talk of coordinated strike action. Now, I've spoken to the RMT in Unison recently. Mick Lynch said, well, we talk to each other. It would be silly for unions not to coordinate their forces. Christina McAnay said, well, we're certainly getting close to a coordinated strike. Are we getting close to a coordinated strike? Well,
yes. I mean, I've said yesterday that I think there could be up to 1 million people on strike very, very soon. I mean, what we're seeing, and I think we just have to take this back as to why people go on strike, is that they can put all the anti-trade union legislation in they want. They can pretend that it's union barons pressing big red buttons. This is about anger. Anger in workplaces within the public sector and in the private sector. So, of course, if I have the same decision-maker, an employer that's the same decision-maker where members are in another union also, of course we will come together and we'll talk about how we can get the best pay for workers. This is about winning money back into workers' pockets. So Unite has had 450 disputes in less than a year. We've won over £200 million back into those workers' pockets. And I unashamedly will do everything I can to fight for workers because they need someone in their corner.
When is a coordinated strike a general strike?
Well, I mean, I suppose it's just depending on words. I mean, for me, this is about issues that happen in a workplace. Those workers are trying to get them solved. Nobody wants to have a strike or nobody wants to have a general strike. But you've got to see that this is pure anger that's happening. And if there are a number of strikes happening at the same time, people can call it what they like, quite frankly. My job is to win for those workers. So if there are issues where employers have unfettered profit, they are not giving some of that back to the workers, they're not getting their piece of the pie, then unions will do everything in our power to make sure that we get those workers a good deal.
So we could be seeing general strikes this winter?
Well, you could see multiple strikes this winter. What people call it is really up to them, but there will be multiple strikes. I know in my own union there's been 450 strikes in less than a year. 90,000 Unite members have been out on strike. £200 million have been won back in the pockets of those workers. That is the job of trade unions. That's what we should be doing. And that's what we're doing more and more of. So I can see that that will escalate. The thing is to solve these strikes, though, Sophie, it's not about strikes for strikes' sakes. The government needs to look at how are they going to stop saying that this country should take a national pay cut. That's what they're saying. It's almost like an abhorrence now to ask for a pay rise. That they shouldn't be saying we should take a national pay cut. Allow us to get on with our jobs, stop trying to stop us, and let's get more money in people's pockets.
Just finally, you, of course, are the leading union in the health sector. Lots of people will be quite concerned about the idea of doctors and nurses going on strike and the impact that could have on patients and healthcare. Are we looking a strike in the NHS? Is that going to happen, do you think?
Well, look, I think we are looking at this being a very real option that is now being looked at. It's not something that's taken lightly, but I feel quite embarrassed, actually, that we are in a situation in our country where these people went out, and I know it's said a lot about these workers going out in the pandemic, and it's almost become white noise, but it's absolutely true. We've forgotten what happened there. They went out when everybody else was in their homes, all these key workers, whether it's the NHS or public sector workers across the board, and they took risks. They didn't know what was out there. They've come back and told you're going to take a pay cut. At the same time, they've told bankers you can have a pay rise. There is something drastically wrong with our economy if we allow that to happen.
OK, thank you very much. Fascinating to talk, and thank you for coming to the studio today.
Thank you very much.